Hi, second grade. Mrs. Shannon is here. Yesterday, we read Sled, Dogs, Run together. It was a realistic fiction, which means it was made up, but the characters and events could happen in real life. We also remember our essential question of how do animals survive? Read about how sled dogs that live in a very cold environment. So today I said we were going to look at this book again and talk about beginning, middle, and end, our comprehension skill of the week. When I talk about the beginning, middle, and end of a story, I'm talking about the plot. We are going to make a page in our composition notebook titled Plot. We will label it with today's date, 11-6-2020, the title of the book, Sled Dogs Run, and 3 rectangular boxes going down the page, with the first one labeled with a B for beginning, the middle one labeled with an M for middle, and finally the third box labeled an E for end. So right now, please open up your composition notebook, turn to the next fresh page, and copy down what is on my page on the screen. You can pause this video, take your time, try not to rush, and make sure you have enough room to write your sentences inside these boxes. You can see that each of my boxes had 6 rows on it. You can copy that if you would like, or make your own boxes. Pause this video and press play when you're ready to move on. All right, second graders, now that your page is ready to go, we are going to review our book, Sled Dogs Run. Now, I am not going to read the entire book all over again since I read it out loud to you yesterday. Instead, I'm going to skim the pages, looking at the pictures, reminding myself of the big events that happened in the story. So, if I want to start at the beginning, I need to look at this page. What is happening on this page? Well, I see the girl is playing with the sled dogs, and at this time, they are still so tiny. They're puppies. They have just been born. They were born in the spring, and she's playing with them because they are not yet full grown. They are still puppies. So that's what's happening in the beginning of the story. The puppies were born. So for your very first box at the beginning of the story, you will write, "The puppies are born in the spring." That is how our story began. And that is an important part, an event in the story, because the puppies are part of the main characters. I have also put on a digital version so you can look at typing instead of looking at my handwriting. So I typed it in, "The puppies are born in the spring." Again, you can pause this video if you need to write down your sentence, and press play when you are ready to move on. All right, second graders. So here I see the dogs Skookum, Hawk, and Bamboo. They're running and chasing each other. And it looks like now they're training. Remember how the dogs wear the harness and practice pulling logs? And we see the girl is practicing on the practice cart. And finally, the winter comes. And they're ready to go on their first solo run, the girl and the dogs. So she's about to leave on her first solo run by herself. And here we are, we see them on the solo run. We see the dogs running, they're attached to their harnesses. They are racing cloud shadows, they're racing a snowy owl, they're racing the wind. We see her scarf blowing in the wind. The dogs are happy, she looks happy. The middle of the story. The girl and the sled dogs go on a solo run. That is what's happening in the middle of the story. Now, second graders, this is still pretty early on in the middle of the story, so I want you to leave a little bit of room in your box labeled middle. So write this sentence down. The girl and the sled dogs go on a solo run, but leave a little bit of extra room in case we need to add anything about the events in the middle of the story. So pause this video as you write in the sentence. The girl and the sled dogs go on a solo run. That is the big main event in the middle of the story. All right, here we look again. We see the dogs are chasing a snowshoe hare. Again, they're smiling. The girl is smiling. They look happy, still on their first solo run. They spot a big moose. The moose, they luckily were able to swerve and get away from the moose before it charged them. Uh-oh, something starts to happen on their solo run. Do you remember, second graders? That's right, a big storm hits. And all of a sudden, they are blinded by the wind and the snow, and they are lost. So now she's on her first solo run with those sled dogs, but now she's lost. So we need to add that to our middle part of the story. So you can see I added on a short extra sentence after the girl and the sled dogs go on a solo run. I added the sentence, they get lost. All right, so try and fit that extra sentence into your box labeled M for middle. They get lost. That is a very important event for the middle of our story. You can see I typed it out as well. It's easier to read the typing instead of my writing. So we added the sentence, they get lost. That is a very important part. So as the storm rages on, she gets nervous, but she remembers what her papa says. Trust the dogs. They will know the way. The dogs are my eyes. So she's afraid, but she remembers, don't worry. Trust the dogs. They will get us home. And finally, the storm dies down, and she sees a light ahead of them, and she sees it's her home. The dogs have brought her home. So the storm ended. They were lost, but now the dogs guided her home. So thinking about what you might write for the end of the story, how this story ended. The dogs brought her home. So I wrote, the girl and the sled dogs find their way home after the storm. So that shows us that the storm has ended and they returned back from their first solo run. Again, I typed it out for you if it's easier to read than my handwriting. You're filling in your box labeled end or E for end in your composition notebook. The girl and the sled dogs find their way home after the storm. So second graders, go ahead and pause this video if you need to copy this down. And I will show you what my final page looked like also as it is complete. There you go. So hopefully you enjoyed reviewing our story, Sled Dogs Run, and thinking about the plot, identifying the important events in the beginning, the middle, and the end. Thanks for working with me today, second graders.